Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Honestly, I don't know how to start this. I'm not the best at intros, if you can't tell. How's your day going? I'm doing fine. How are you? I don't know what to do. Honestly, I don't care too much for intros. I feel like they're a waste of time. If I'm being real, you got all this flashy bullshit and these fireworks going off in the background talking about K-Swiss beats, whoop de whoop, boop de boop. I'm like, could you just get to the top 10 list? Do we have to do this bullshit? I don't know. That's just me. Anyway. anyway, um, welcome back to my channel. I'm Chardonnay, like the wine. Thank you for tuning in. And if you read the title, you already know what we're going to talk about. Were the Egyptians black? Short answer is yes. No fucking shit. Honestly, come on. They're on the continent of Africa, but they're not black. Common sense isn't that common, my loves. But, there's a lot of people that think that they weren't black. So let's get into it. The reason that I was making this video is because I got into an argument with a white girl, surprise, surprise, on the internet yesterday. And she was basically fighting to the death that Egyptians were not black people. And me, being the pro-black person that I am, said, the fuck you mean? What do you mean they're not black people? From the continent of Africa? The fuck you mean? The fuck you mean? I mean, the fuck you mean? Like, come on. Of course they're black. So we get into it, we go back and forth, and then she basically mentions this idea of these researchers who go, they excavate the mummies from the ancient Egyptian times, and they sequence the DNA and find European DNA. So she's like, well, that proves that they're white people. Me, being me, I'm like, well, I'm not going to take your fucking word for it. I'm going to look this shit the fuck up. So I went to my best friend, Google, and I looked it up. And I found some articles that corroborated what she said, of course. And I agreed with her to an extent, like, yeah, of course. I agree with you. But, again, me being me, I had to shut that shit down. I had to shut that shit down real quick. Because I don't take things at face value. I like to investigate. I like to research. I like to go back and look at sources. Like, I'm not just going to take nobody's word for nothing. I got to compare what you said to what she said to what he said to whoop-de-whoop-de-boop-de-boop. And that's what I do. So that's what I did. And basically, this is what I found out about the Egyptians. What I found out is that there are white archaeologists, there are white anthropologists, there are white paleontologists that found mummies from a certain era in ancient Egypt, and they're basically saying, well, this proves that the Egyptians were white. But that's not true. Upon further investigation, I found out that the mummies that they sequenced in their DNA were mummies from the time that the Romans ruled Egypt. So I'm like, of fucking course they're going to have white DNA. They're from Roman rule. But if you know history, you know that the Romans ruled the New Kingdom. And Egypt is classified in the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and lastly, the New Kingdom before it fell. So I'm like, okay, the New Kingdom is under Roman rule, and I think that's common knowledge. Everybody knows that. But that doesn't explain who the Old Kingdom and Middle Kingdom were. So how possibly say that the original Egyptians were white people when you can't even excavate those mummies because they're so old that you can't even sequence their DNA? Which again, I mean, that doesn't make sense to me, because if you can tell dinosaur bones and you can tell how old they are and all of that stuff, why can't you sequence those bones? I don't know. It's a little sus. It's sus to me, because it's like, isn't it so convenient that you would dig up some bones that you know would have white DNA in them just to prove that the ancient Egyptians were white, but you refuse to excavate bones that were prior to that era to prove what? You wrong? Like, it's not adding up to me. It doesn't make sense to me. But at the same time, you're not going to sit up here and say that Egyptians were white when you're telling the truth, but you're telling a half-assed truth, which is what white people do. It is. And I'm not, oh, white people. She's talking about white people. I'm not saying all white people. I'm saying white society. I'm saying white government. They always push this agenda that everything significant that's ever happened is white. And I'm like, how are you possibly going to push the idea that European people were on the continent of Africa? Like, it's so mind-blowing. It's so mind-boggling that the ancient Egyptians could be black on the continent of Africa. Are you serious? Like, well, there's no way that they were black. They had to be European. They were doing brain surgeries thousands of years ago. There's no way they were Negroes. Like, come on, bro. Really? Really? Like, and that's just what it is. That's what it is. You're pushing a white supremacist agenda at that point, because you're trying to say that white people were Egyptians. You're only excavating bones from a time where, of course, there's going to be white DNA intermixed with ancient Egyptians, and you refuse to excavate bones from prior to then. And even then, with me, I don't want you excavating my ancestors' bones. Leave them alone. You don't see black people trying to go to Egypt excavating bones, because we know ourselves. We know our ancestors. We know where we came from. Okay, we know the truth. It's white people that are trying to dig up mummies and sequence DNA to prove a truth that ain't the truth. It's not. It's not. Like, even if you want me to go further, look up Kemet. That's right, look up the word Kemet. Because that's what Egypt was called before it was called Egypt, when it was taken over in Roman rule. That is the Old Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom. And who ran Kemet? Black people. But they're not going to teach you that. They're not going to tell you that. And it's ridiculous to me. It's honestly ridiculous that they're still pushing this narrative. They still got these white people, or non-black people, because there are non-black people that are even indigenous, that are even Asian, that will think that Egyptians weren't black on the continent of Africa. It just, every time I say it, I'm sorry, but every time I say it, I'm like, are you dumb or are you dumb? Like, I don't want to call y'all dumb, but why is it so hard to believe that Africans were black? Like, why is it so hard for you to believe something like that? I just want to know. That's all I know. Like, you think that Egyptians look like Elizabeth Taylor? Really? Y'all. It's not adding up to me. It's not adding up. And that's the thing that makes me so mad. Like, black people can't have nothing. People can't have anything. Going back to the girl that I was arguing with, and of course I'm going to insert all of this, but going back to her, she started off saying they were white. Then she backtracked and said that they were mixed, but they're not black. And that also raises the question, so when are mixed people black? Because people seem to get to pick and choose when mixed people are black. you know? Like, when it comes to something like Obama's the first black president, right? But if Egyptians are mixed with black, they're not black people. I don't understand that. It's not clicking with me. It's really not clicking for me.
Like, honestly, I'm at a point where I'm not understanding where people are coming from. Like, I honestly feel in my heart that people just find it hard to believe that the Egyptians are black because they're so used to Egyptians not being black, right? And that kind of takes us into the point of, the group of people who are like, well, it doesn't matter what race they were, it just matters their contributions. And I'm just like, well, if it doesn't matter what race they were, why did you change their race in the first place? Like, why change Jesus's race if that's the case? If it doesn't matter their race, because we all know that he was black, he was Middle Eastern. So what's the point of changing the race if it doesn't matter, right? And again, let's go into history. The reason that they changed the original race from Egyptians and Jesus and other things that were African is because they were enslaving Africans. So what good does it do the white people that were enslaving black people if they're showing them that Jesus, the savior of saviors, was black? How are you going to enslave people that were ahead of their time, that were doing brain surgeries, that were doing eye surgeries, that were literally building pyramids to the point where even modern society doesn't even know how they did it, right? So how are you going to enslave those people? So they change the race of those people to white to make it seem like white people have always been in power and they will always be in power. That's just history. That's just what it is, and that's just what happened. Look it up. Look it up. I'm not making this shit up. Look it up. Google is your best friend. And I don't know how many times I gotta say that, but it's true. So the same people that say, well, race doesn't matter. If race doesn't matter, change the race back to what it originally was. And that's all I gotta say. If race doesn't matter, why would you change it in the first place? If it doesn't matter, Oh, child. And then that's going into a whole different conversation with white people, and they're gonna be like, well, I'm not my ancestors, and you can't hold me accountable for my ancestors. And at the end of the day, I can't hold you accountable for what your ancestors did, but I can hold you accountable for the fact that you refuse to reverse what they've done. Correct? So, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know, but you should probably try to start rectifying what they've done. You're sick of black people saying it, and honestly, black people are sick of telling you the same shit over and over again. I'm sick of talking about this. If I'm being real with you, I gotta keep rehashing the same shit over and over and over again. I'm so sick of talking about it. I don't want to keep telling you the same thing just for you to not care, not to change anything. Like, let me be real with you. Let me be very real with y'all. I've had a lot of white people delete their comments on the internet, which I'm very proud of. I've never seen anybody have people delete Instagram posts, delete Twitter comments, delete, because I stay educating people on the internet. I'm not gonna let you walk around thinking that you're right. I'm not. I'm sorry. Call me a know-it-all if you must. But I refuse to let you be walking around thinking that the fuck you're not. But at the same time, it's like something's gotta give. Like, either you're going to rectify the wrongs and right them, or what? Like, we can't keep going back and forth like this. Like, I'm so sick of saying this. It's something that should be common sense. Again, I will say this again. Africans are black. Like, what to do. I don't know what to do anymore. Jesus Lord. I don't know what to do. But yeah. Egyptians were black. For the umpteenth time, like for the last time. I'm not gonna keep saying it. Honestly and truly, like honestly, in the future, if somebody comes up to me and says Egyptians are white, I'm just gonna link this video. Like, I'm gonna just link them to this video. I'm not doing it no more. I'm not dealing with this. It's too much. I refuse to keep going back and forth with this. Why? Why? If I came up to you and said a Nigerian did such and such, what's the first thing you're going to say? Oh, that was a black person. Because they're African. They're from the continent. Even Tunisian people, they're black. Moroccan people, they're black. Northern African people are what? Black people. Like, why is it so hard, but you have to do mental gymnastics to prove to yourself that ancient Egyptians weren't black on the African continent when humanity originated on the African continent and all people come from black people? Like, what do you have to do? What kind of mental gymnastics do you possibly have to go through to prove to yourself that Europeans were Egyptians? Like, honestly, I've heard everything. Like, well, you know, the Egyptians were Roman. And I'm like, no, motherfucker, those are Romans, not Egyptians. Like, those aren't the same people. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, oh, you know that they were white and that mixing happened later. So you're telling me for 8,000 years that it was a pure white race of people in Africa that never intermixed with the black people around them? Ever? The black people that they did commerce with, that they traded with, that they had tourism and travel with. Never? Ever? Shut your bit. You know what? Chardonnay. Be nice. God. Oh my God. Let me drink my Republican tears in peace. Ooh, child. But yeah. I mean, honestly, let me tell you, honestly, if you still think that Egyptians are white, I'm not even mad about it. I'm really not, because I'm gonna say this. None of us were around back then. None of us were here thousands of years ago. No one knows for truly and for certain. We can honestly just go off of geography, and geographically, it makes sense that they were black people. It just does. But if you think that they were white, I'm not even gonna be mad about it anymore. It's too much energy. It's too much time. I just don't. We can agree to disagree. Can we do that as adults? As adults, can we agree to disagree? All right, okay. Because I can't do it no more. I can't go back and forth with y'all no more. Believe what you want to believe. Whatever. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to me rant and rave and be a weirdo as I do so well. And I will see you guys in the next one. All right.